Hey, welcome back to Step Into the Story. I'm Barbara Tanner-Wallace. I'm here with Donna, and look who stopped by to visit. Angela Anderson from Angela Anderson Presents.
Yay!
Our favorite reviewer. How you doing, Angela?
Yay! I'm great. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing good. We're so excited to see you. We love our annual visit with you. We haven't seen you since last spring.
Can you guys tell I'm like excited to hang out with Barb and Donna?
Well, and today we're going to have so much fun because today we're going to talk about Sadeqa Johnson's book, The House of Eve. Now, I read The Yellow Wife. Did you read The Yellow Wife?
Yeah, you get the paperback with the
cover. I read The Yellow Wife by her, and it was one of my favorite reads of 2021. And so it's always hard to follow up a really great book, but this is fantastic. And it was a Reese Witherspoon pick. It is about two African-American women in the 1950s. You have 15-year-old Ruby and Eleanor. Ruby lives in the, I guess it's basically the slums of Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I'm blanking, but it's one of the inner cities in Pennsylvania. And then Eleanor is a freshman at Howard University. And both ladies fall in love, and love affairs end up forcing them to make some choices that change the trajectory of both their lives. And I kind of purposely said it vague because I didn't want to give away too much. But I think that will sum it up. It is a great read. I think all of us will agree that we're in love with the book.
Yeah. Also, we want credit because we picked this book before Reese did.
We did.
We put this book on our calendar as our monthly pick, like back in December or November when we were coming up with our schedule. So like, too bad, Reese, we got here first.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Because I was reading about The Yellow Wife. So Donna goes, "Hey, did you see Sadeqa Johnson's got a new book out?" We're like, "Oh, we're in.
Yep.
So,
and it looks so good. I love the cover.
Yeah.
I love the cover.
I know, me too. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Right. Like that dress is just everything.
It is. It is. I really love the cover.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack in this book too, because we deal with racism and colorism and classism and mother and daughter relationships, mother and child relationships too, when we look at Shimmy and his mother and William and his mother, reproductive rights, ambition, like female ambition in the 50s. Like there is a ton here. And we have two women who are from very different backgrounds, but their storylines have a lot of parallels. And so I'm just wondering, what parallels did you see, Angela, in both women? Like, how were they the same?
I think for both of them, they wanted to make one of the parallels is they both want to make their mark, or what have you, on different levels. And they both had something that they really, really wanted. Of course, Ruby, she wanted to not be like the rest of the women in her family. She wanted more. She wanted to become a doctor and all these things, or what have you. And then, of course, we know Eleanor, she wanted to have a child, and she wanted, to have happy marriage, like with her husband or what have you. But I think both of their drive for wanting more and wanting what they wanted out of was kind of one of the parallels for me.
I kind of thought
they wanted better, if that makes sense too.
It does. And I thought they were both feeling a little bit of pressure because it's very clear at the beginning that Eleanor's family sacrificed to send her to this really good university.
Yeah.
So she was under pressure to succeed because her parents gave up everything. And Ruby's under pressure to succeed because everyone's like thinking, you're the smart one. You're going to finally break the pattern and go to college and not be a teenage pregnancy and do all these things.
Yeah.
Right. She's not going to be like her mother.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And,
which is her mother is like a whole nother just conversation. Oh my goodness.
That's like a whole other show. That's a whole Dr. Phil right there. And I think too, like they both fall for forbidden men. So, William is above Eleanor's, like out of her league, and Shimmy is a white Jew. And so that makes things really, really difficult. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me through the whole book was this sense of internalized shame. Like they were made to feel like, I have a big thing about shame. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's one of my big things. And what an unproductive emotion that is. And so for Eleanor feeling shame because of her infertility issues or her reproductive issues. And then for Ruby's shame because she is constantly made to feel like she is less than because she's Black.
Yep.
So and then of course all the things that happen throughout the story, all that does is reinforce that idea that they are shameful women, and despite that, they still. So I think that really stuck with me.
Yeah, I thought there was a real. They both were kind of challenged for wanting to break out of their place.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like Eleanor, how dare she want to rise up and marry into a wealthy family and fall in love with William, and he's very wealthy, we should point out. And Ruby, it's like, how dare she speak to a white boy and develop affections for him? It's like, don't leave your place. They were both given very tiny boxes.
Yeah.
And a lot of this took place was interesting because this.
And I guess too.
Oh, you froze up on us. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And I guess too, in addition to that, like, if we can kind of, I guess, go back to the parallel as well, both of them had like this secret they had to like hold. Of course, Ruby, her secret of having to go to the House of Eves, and of course, Eleanor, her secret of having to baby. So she, of course, she gotta like keep that secret. And then when you think about, I guess on a different level, when you think about Shimmy's character and William's character, how I guess also how they saw the situation was totally different from the women. Or what have you, because when Ruby tried to explain different things to him of why they couldn't really be together, and it was like he was solely like, okay, but I love you, and this could work, and she was just like, let's do like reality check right now of everything that is going on. And even for her to like stand up, and I know this is kind of getting into it, but even there was a point where she kind of had to stand up for her and say, okay, what do I want more? I really love this guy, but if I'm going to, to get out of this hamster wheel that my family in and do better, I gotta make a choice, and which one is actually putting herself first, like which one is going to better benefit me. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, and she makes it was a very hard choice.
Well, and the thing is, they come at it from, like, when you look at William and Shimmy, it's like, well, they come at it from a place of not having to make the same choices because they're coming at it from a place of male privilege.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's huge. That's huge. I didn't even think about it that way, but yeah, that is so true. Wow.
Well, and I've noticed this because I've noticed this in all her books. She tends to write very strong women, and the men are not as strong, which is interesting. I think that's just a style of hers. But Shimmy and William were kind of weak in many ways.
They're mama's boys.
They were very mama's boys. Especially William. I got very frustrated with William.
Yeah.
And I guess it goes back to what Donna was saying too about that male privilege, that in that space and in making those decisions, it was almost like they didn't have to be. Because think about even William's mom, of everything, like even with the decisions that was made about, making that choice of doing those things, it was okay. Sometimes that kind of made me mad because I was like, okay, can you just stand up for Eleanor, or what have you? But yeah, but now when I think about that privileged part, it's like, well, really they didn't have to be, or felt like they didn't have to, make those hard decisions, if that makes sense.
And it was very in keeping with the 1950s, because I think men were like that in the 1950s, period. And it was always the women's responsibility.
Yeah.
Well, and Shimmy's mom and Rose, if you look at the fathers in those situations, if you look at Shimmy's dad, he was a drunk. And if you look at William's dad, he was a doctor, a very successful doctor, but who ran that family? It was Rose. So, I mean, even when it's mothers and sons, it's also wives and husbands, and it's the wives who are the strong ones.
Yep.
It's an interesting dynamic.
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm curious because both mothers, both Rose and Shimmy's mother, made some really hard decisions, kind of forced some things on Eleanor and Ruby. And at first they come across as cruel. And I'm curious if by the end of the book, your opinions of that changed. Because mine did for one of them.
My answer is yes.
We're letting you think.
For both of them, because William's mother.
Did my opinions of them change?
Oh, we got some lag with Angela.
Yeah. You have to repeat that because you froze up on us.
Debbie Williams, once she made that visit to see Ella, you kind of understood some things from a different perspective of kind of why she behaved in the manner that she did. And I also felt like she had to protect her family and their family name. And then, back then it was about prestige and what things looked like and being accepted. So it determined kind of like her behavior. Now, in my book, it didn't kind of like justify her behavior, but I know, as being an African-American woman, that the colorism is very real. And even though it may not be as prominent now, it actually still exists. So with that, it was just like, wow. I loved how Sadeqa actually brought that to light, because some people are not familiar with that colorism and the way that people behaved depending on, your tone of your skin or the color of your skin.
Right.
In the African-American community. So once she did that visit, I kind of understood her a little more, or what have you. And then even with Shimmy's mom, the fact that she stood on her word. In that time, she actually backdoor. She had got what she wanted. You know what I'm saying? That she got what she wanted for her family, but she stood on her. I did respect her for that manner to say, you know what? She stood on her word, and she did what she said she was going to do as far as Ruby was concerned.
She kept her promise to Ruby. Yeah.
Yes.
And in a weird way, she did what was right for all three parties in that decision. It seemed cruel, but in the end, everyone turned out better off. Well, and the same thing with Eleanor is I did understand it a lot better once she explained like why colorism was important to her and lighter skin was important. And you realize like what their family gained and why she was trying to keep alive.
Well, and not just that. I don't
know if I would, I can see where if I were Eleanor, I'd be insulted, but I think Eleanor also then understood where she was coming from.
But toward the end, though, we also see her opinion toward Eleanor change. And she says some really nice things about Eleanor. And it's like, okay, and so I really like that. Like, it actually showed her having a little bit of an arc rather than just being a bulldozer over everybody.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is, especially with Shimmy's mom and that whole situation, as much as we would love to be say, oh yes, Shimmy, you're right. You should just love conquers all and you should just be together. That wasn't the reality. And what she did, even though what Ruby went through to get to that point was horrible at the House of Eve, but her decision was not wrong. It was harsh, but it was reality. And the fact that she kept her word afterward, sometimes moms do what's best. It's not the easy thing, but it's the right thing.
Well, and I'm sure she could have been a little about doing it, but I think that, and again, I think that one of the reasons that Eleanor and her mother-in-law clashed was because Eleanor was just like Rose in many ways. She grew a backbone by the end of the book. And I think Rose recognized that that was the future of the family, not her son necessarily.
Right. And it's the women that drive it, and she had her respect. It's really interesting that when you look at Ruby saying toward the end that the only way forward was to forget. And, you know, she says that a couple of different times. And so do you think that's accurate? Do you think that's what do you think of that whole sort of idea that the only way forward is to forget? And did Ruby manage to do that? I mean, we see her at the end, but do you think that that's possible? Don't all jump at once.
I think she got to a point where she knew that I think deep down it was kind of like, you know, she buried it, but it was still there. But she knew that she couldn't like dwell on it if she wanted to be successful and to move forward in her life. Because even she was like, okay, I can have this baby and I can keep it, but you know, taking care of the baby and doing all those things, then what about dreams? Something that I really, you know, if I to stay in the past and stay attached to this, you know, it could hinder me going forward. Does that make sense or what have you? So I don't know. Actually, you know, I guess in her case that worked for her. And even, you know, if you think about even with Eleanor, it, you know, it's kind of like the same thing, you know, one like that she really, I think one of the issues with her is that was something that she really wanted to have just between her and William. And the fact that his mom kind of like, you know, it was like, well, William, that was supposed to have been something that's like just ours, that we know this secret. That does that make sense of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it was a huge betrayal. I think.
So I think with her, that was. Yeah. And then the fact of her finding out that he knew, it was like, oh, so y'all play. I mean, I guess this is like in 2000 terms, you know, she's feeling like y'all literally played me. You know, you knew all along that your mom knew and that she behind all of this. She was like, why didn't you just ask her, tell me? Whether they felt like she would go along with it or not, she was like, really? You was keeping this from me? Us? The two of us? So yeah,
it's pretty hard when there's an extra person in the marriage. And
what would you guys thought about that?
But you know what's funny is it was so realistic, because I've known people whose mother was the third person in their marriage, and how hard it was because, you know, I had a relative who was married to someone who was a real mama's boy, and the mother dictated a lot, and it was hard because it's like, oh, nope, this is what mom needs, so we have to run over and do this. So I thought it was very realistic that, you know, this guy who at the beginning seems perfect, that was his big flaw, was that he was a super mama's boy. And as a mother of a son, I can tell you how easy it is to dote on them. Oh no!
But you have to give it to Eleanor. She really did try. It was like but I think at that point where she had her breaking moment or outburst of a moment, I just felt like it was, for her, it was just like too much. And then all those things that kind of like, it was almost like she was holding it in. And then it was, you know, it was like, if you just do one more thing, it just takes like a little, yes. And she just like exploded. And somehow she really, you know, or what have you, but it was like, yeah, I think she had just got to that breaking point where it was like, you know what, I cannot hold this in anymore. And even remember, a lot of times like William would do stuff or he would say stuff and she would literally like where his mom was concerned, and she literally would like bite her tongue. It's like, okay, let me just let that ride. But yeah, I think that night at the dinner table, and I think she was already on edge because remember it was supposed to be a boy, it ended up being a girl, and remember even the time frame of when they initially got the call. Remember it took a little bit longer, so I just think she was just already on edge, and then dealing with she just got a new baby and bonding with the baby. And then, it was just like, okay, Eleanor, at that point, it was just like, return. Let me just let y'all know how I'm really feeling right now. and her exit.
Such a great moment, too, because she'd been so insecure all the way through the book until she reaches that point where she's like, I don't care. Screw you all and what you did. And like leaves. And you're going, yes, finally.
Yeah.
And then it was very interesting that it was the mother. Again, it's the women that solve all the issues, not the men. But I think at that point she'd resigned herself to that's how the dynamic was.
Girl power.
Yeah. Who was going to call it?
Yeah.
So
now, what did you guys think about? I felt she had gained. Anna?
No, go ahead. I have a little bit of lag going on, so that's fine. Go ahead, Angela.
Okay. What did you guys think about? I felt like she had gained a little bit, and I'm talking about Eleanor, that she had a little bit of backbone. Remember when didn't want her to stop work? And she was like, look, like, okay, I'm kind of doing all this, but I am going to continue to work. So I felt like that was her taking a little bit of her independence, saying, okay, look, we're doing all this stuff that your mom wants us to do, but I will not allow you guys to take that from me. Like, like I'm my own woman. I'm here at Howard. I'm at this prestigious university. I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to, so for me, that was a proud moment for me, for Eleanor. It's like, okay, I'm not going to allow y'all to strip me from everything. So I thought that was like.
Yeah, no, I was proud of her for doing that too.
I don't know what you guys thought of that.
No, I was proud of her because it's no small feat to get into Howard to begin with. I mean, it's the Black Harvard, right? So it's very prestigious. So she had to bust her ass to get there, whether her parents sacrificed money or not. She worked hard to get there, and she was clearly a smart woman, and she was not going to sacrifice her intelligence. And I was really glad to see that. And I think that was the beginning of her growth when she started to say, all right, well, then I'll do this, but you're going to let me have my job. So.
Yeah, and there was a lot she didn't give up. Even though there were things working behind her that she didn't know about, she still in the moment stood up for herself a lot. Like even when they weren't married yet and she went to brunches and Greta was there, like she didn't back down and she wasn't like timid or anything. She was like, so what's your problem? And I really liked that. I really liked that about her. Like she really was a strong woman. And yes, sometimes things didn't go her way, but that didn't stop her from putting her foot down.
I have to say, a few books.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
This, did you have a favorite in either Ruby or Eleanor? Because this is one of the few books where you have two characters where I loved both of them so much. Usually I have one storyline and I'm leaning more towards the other. And this one, I really loved both women. And like my heart broke so many times for Ruby. And, she was so young when all this stuff.
Yeah. I didn't have a favorite.
Barb, I'm with you. I'm with you, definitely. I pull at your heartstrings, and I think I was invested in both characters. That because yes, like Barb says, sometimes you have where you're like ready to get back to the storyline, but for me, it's story and they entwine or what have you. But yeah, both characters just pulled at my heartstring, and like Barb said, Ruby, oh my goodness, because of how young she was and what she had to deal with and the weight that she had to have or what have you, even, before it goes to her having to go to the house to even just the relationship between her and her mom was like,
Oh, yeah.
wow, and the fact that her mom, like even the things that she like had to endure. But I think that there was also a longing, even though she knew that her mom was just something else. I'll just use that. I'll say that her mom was something else. Of course, I can say more, but her mom was something else. Or what have you. But even at moments, I don't know if you guys, even at moments, she longed for her mother's like love, even though her was, doing the most. But there was some things in there, and I would love to hear you guys' opinion. There was some moments where I felt, even though some decisions, I think she kind of did it to protect Ruby, especially when it came to that boyfriend. I think even though she acted one way, I think she knew that the best place, even though she told Ruby it was her fault and she was being fast, I think she knew for Ruby's safety, it was for her to be, and I just forgot her aunt's name, but to be at Aunt Marie, to be at Aunt Marie. That's just me. Like when I pulled from it, and I was like,
it's an interesting take. And now that you say it, it's very, very possible, because being thrown out was Ruby's salvation.
There is a line or a bit of a scene toward the end when she goes back home to see her mom, and her mom has a baby, and she tells Ruby that she should go before Leap comes home. It's Leap is the boyfriend, and she should go. And there is a line, and I wish I'd marked it, but it basically, you do get a real sense that she is doing that for Ruby's protection. And so it's a really interesting thing. But I remember that, though, because I read the ending at 2 a.m. because I was late starting. And as I was saying earlier, I started it at 8 last night, and I read through till 2:30 in the morning, and then I went to bed. I was going to finish it this morning. I thought I'll read till 11, then I'll go to bed, and then I'll get up in the morning. And then it was like, nope, I just stayed up until 2:30 and read it from cover to cover.
I did get a real sense of regret from the mother at the end, that she made some decisions she wasn't necessarily proud of having made, and she regretted them, but they were done. And it was another one of those, like, I can't change it. And
there's also a point where Ruby realizes toward the end that she had always kind of thought that her mother had abandoned her to her grandmother. But then she adjusts that perspective and thinks that maybe her mother left her with her grandmother because she knew that was where she'd get the better care, and that it was actually unselfish on her part rather than selfish. And I thought that was a really interesting twist on how she felt about that.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Again, it's very fresh in my mind.
I like the fact that
I'm astounded at how much
that out. I like how Sadeqa she gave those mother-child dynamics, what she means. And his mom, Eleanor, and her mom, or what you, and then how when you think about Ruby, the decisions that she had to make, and same thing with Eleanor, but then also going back to like the relationships that each of these characters had with their actual mothers, and those side characters that were also influential. It's like Ruby, oh my goodness, her Aunt Marie. I mean, even that moment where she I think even though Aunt Marie wasn't like a what's the word I want to use? She wasn't like a touchy feely like hugs all the time, but I think there came a time where Ruby saw that Aunt Marie really loved her, and that language was just a little bit different, but she really did care a lot for Ruby, and she wanted what was best for her. prime example. You guys probably know the scene I'm going to, the hookings or pantyhose scene, what have you, that, you know, that wasn't even Aunt Marie's flow. But for Ruby, you know, Ruby had to wear her down because, you know, she kept asking, like, you know, I really need to wear. And so you guys know, I did find out back in the day, that was a thing. Like, you wore, like, the young ladies in the African-American community, they wore bobby socks until like a certain age. I mean, if you wore pantyhose, that was next level.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a 50s
with the young ladies that wear pantyhose. And so that's why, you know, Aunt Marie was like, you know, you're not ready for pantyhose, or, you know, you can't wear. She was like, but I need them for my graduation, you know, of the program. But for her to do that, but it also was a pivotal moment for Ruby, because I think until this moment, I mean, she knew that there was a separation of class, and there was a separation of, you know, African Americans and Caucasians or what have you. But that moment, she got like a whole live action of that was like, and the feel, I mean, that was, for me, that was one of those pulling at your heartstring moments
that was
of her, when she had that realization. Wow, this all means. Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was you really felt Ruby get kicked in the gut at that point, because I think you're right. I think she, you know, she talks about how she's not allowed to go across the street and play in the playground with the white mothers or white kids or whatever. But it's one thing to see it and be still insulated in your Black community, so you're not really experiencing it so up front. And then suddenly she goes into downtown, and it smacks her in the face, and she realizes, okay, when you get out of your neighborhood, this is what it is.
Yeah.
I think that was a real growing up moment for her, because until then, they'd sort of kept her in her little world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she grew up a lot.
So I'm guessing that we are all three giving this
go ahead, Donna.
Two very enthusiastic thumbs up. I'm guessing.
All right, you started to ask one more question, Angela, before your lag.
Oh, I was gonna ask you guys, even for Aunt Marie, because think about how dangerous it is, but she, even at that moment, that was just kind of the whole situation was kind of like dangerous. But again, just to see her stand up for Ruby, and I think, again, even the little bit of things that she did, or what have you, I think that, you know what, if nobody else cares about me, my Aunt Marie cares about me in her own way. Because even if you guys remember, Aunt Marie is the one nobody else knew. Jimmy didn't pay for Ruby to get receipt money for her to get on the bus to come back home after, you know, everything was done with. So I think all those little bitty things let her. My Aunt Marie is something.
Yeah, I have to agree. There was a lot. You without her ever saying it, you knew she had her back.
Yeah,
and she was a really great character. This book was just so packed. I mean, it's not. We should say it's not that long a book. It's probably 400 pages, 380,
maybe.
And yet there's so much in it, and it's amazing. Like all these little points, she didn't waste a word.
No, it's very layered and nuanced.
So yes, enthusiastic thumbs up for me.
Yeah.
Reese did well. We did well first, but
Reese, we still picked it first. Like, we could go on and on, but I noticed we're already at like 34 minutes, which is like, we're already pushing it. But we could go on and on about this one. So I think
it doesn't even count the 10 minutes we talked about it before the show.
Right before we even started. So actually, maybe what we can do is once this goes, once we finish and the broadcast is done, then we can maybe carry on a conversation in the comments. That would be really fun.
Yes, I'll be there. I'll help you out.
Right. Angela, thank you. I'm so glad that you messaged and said, hey, because we always love having you.
We do love having you. What are you reading right now?
Yeah, what are you reading right now?
Well, thank you guys. Say what now?
What are you reading right now?
I actually just finished reading Needing the Neighbor Next Door. Like literally just finished reading that. It just like what I'm reading next. And I have like so many that's like on the list. It's like, where do I go first? Myself and another friend of mine, we said we were gonna buddy read Hello Beautiful. The Oprah's book club pick. So I have a book. Yeah. I heard, okay, are we starting that one? Are we buddy reading that one as well? So
Occupational Hazard, right?
What are you guys reading?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm finishing up The Cuban Daughter by Soraya Lane. And then after that, I'm not sure. I do a locally authored book club. And so we meet once a month and you read something by a local author and then everyone shares their views or whatever. So I'll probably read a local one after that. So I'm prepared for my April book club. And then I'll go back to my NetGalley selections and like, I'll just start picking. So
yeah, I think I'm going to start Homecoming by Kate Morton because that comes out in a couple weeks. So I want to start that. But and we will recommend because was in March we gushed. Our March book was Things Past Telling by Sheila Williams.
Oh my God, so good.
It's this and House of Eve, they're like neck and neck for best book of the year.
I agree.
You have to read Things Past Telling. So
I agree.
Yeah.
We had Jana G. Noel on for that one, and she picked it. And such a good adventure story of a young Black woman who was taken from Africa and then like slavery was such a small part of her whole story. And it was just fantastic.
There were pirates in it. There were ghosts. There were, there was like a supernatural component.
Babies.
It was really just really good. And her writing was beautiful.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, highly recommend. I would say
we've been pushing that book since we read it last month.
Right. I would say this book. I would say you're right, Barb. Things Past Telling and House of Eve probably neck and neck for so far best books of the year.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be in the top 10 at the end of the year, if not 1 and 2 again.
Oh wow!
So highly recommend, Angela. Check it out.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that House of Eve will definitely, it would definitely be in my top. It'll definitely be in my 3. Of 20 and 8, but 2 books that I am really excited about. One of them has released already. Is A Novel Proposal by Denise Hunter. I'm really excited about this one. And the other one is Rhonda McKnight. She has a book that comes out in May. I have an ARC copy. It's called A Thing About Home. So this is another women's fiction that I'm looking forward to, like both of those as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we should tell people where they can find you for your reviews and interviews, because you do a lot of interviews with a lot of great authors.
Yeah, where can they find you?
You can find me, of course. I know, right? Of course, I have Angela's Literary Cafe. It's my 30-minute author interview where I interview authors generally on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Facebook Live, and my YouTube channel. Of course, they can follow me on social media. I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook, and I'm on TikTok. I do a little TikToking as well.
All right. Well, we will put links of all of those in the show notes so people will follow you and get interviews, especially after you read those 2 books, so you can hear about it. Yeah.
And isn't it funny how when you're reading a book that is, it's good, but you can put it down and it takes you a long time to read it, and then you pick up something like House of Eve and you just burn through it. Like, I love it when I find those books. Like, love. So I'm hoping that my next few are like totally like burn through them and just like.
I know.
So what we have coming up soon, and I forgot to check our exact dates, but have you got them, Barb? Because I was going to say, check out our Facebook page for our featured author, because we'll have the event listing, because Lauren Willig is joining us this month to talk about 2 Wars and a Wedding, her new book. And what's that date, Barb? Is that a week?
April 18th. April 18th.
April 18th. Okay. And then our writing room toward the end of the month is going to be on Kick-Ass Openings, which should be interesting.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun doing those. So
Angela, come on anytime. You can be our special surprise guest anytime you want. If you have books to recommend, please post them because people will love your tastes.
Yeah, come on into the group and post anytime. We love having you.
That's right. And especially since I think every time we've had you on, we love the book. So
yeah, 100%.
Oh, thank you.
100%.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been awesome talking about it.
It's been great.
All right. Well, everyone can find us on YouTube at Barb. What we have? We hit 100 followers.
We hit 100 subscribers. So YouTube.com, little @ symbol, step into the storybooks.
That's it. We have our own designated Addie now on YouTube. So you can find us there. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/step into the story. I almost tripped on that.
And join us in the comments. We'll keep going on the discussion.
You bet. Anyway, thank you again so much for being here, Angela.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.